This video is for race drivers who need to get up to speed quicker.
Even get to bronze.
Hello, this is Enzo. Welcome to episode 24 of the Race Driver Coach Show. And today we're talking about what I just mentioned about drivers taking too long to get up to speed in a race weekend. And this all came from a beautiful viewer's question. Thank you again. John, you emailed me and I'm going to not shame you. I'm just going to show now the question that you asked. Here it is. Some people can go out on Friday morning, lap one, and bang it in straight away. I have to warm up to the task throughout the day. Are there any methods I can use to get to my peak performance quicker, find the grip faster, and have faith in it that it will hold? The real question is, how do I know how hard to push when conditions start to change in a race? Now that's a meaty question. And now it's in two parts really. The first part is the beginning of the free practice, and the second part is during a race, where to know where the grip is. But I'm going to attempt to answer it so it covers everything. Because the second part really is understand the fact that nobody knows where the grip is. When it gets loose, or it gets drier, people don't really know where the grip is, so they have to just trust the grey area. And that's really, in essence, what the problem is at the start of free practice one. When you don't quite know the grip, it's not very predictable. That's the challenge. And it's the drivers that can actually perform in them circumstances, in them situations, that are the ones that are going to win more often and make it easier for themselves and have a better image. So there's a lot of reasons why, which I'll go through in a minute, why you need to get better at this area. It's a bit risky, but you need to get better if you really want to be at the front and winning championships all the time. So yeah, I'm going to try and cover everything. Second part again is type of experience as well. So if you're in a race and it changes and you know what that circuit's like and you know what that car is like in them conditions, that can help you. So it's kind of car control as well. So it's skill based. So it's experience, skill based, all into one. But I want to make this very easy to understand. When you ask a driver who's quick in that situation, when they just throw caution to the wind, it seems like, but they just go out there and do it, even though the grip's really low. Like, how the hell do you know where to brake and everything? I just feel what the tyre's doing. I feel what the tyre's doing and I react. Simple. They make it very simple. And when you've performed at your best and somebody asks you, how'd you do it? And you just go, well, I don't know. I just drove. That's usually when you're at one with the car and you're using feeling more than logical thought. You're not looking really at braking markers, because drivers who look at braking markers and use them, and they're quite rigid to them, they usually struggle when it comes to changing conditions. Because when it's changing conditions, even 10-mile-an-hour wind, a headwind or a tailwind, can change now where you brake, obviously, right? Or a bit more fueling, or more downforce, or different tire pressures even. It all changes the braking. So if you've got a rigid 125 meter board or 150 meter board or 100, that's where I brake, you're going to be a bit apprehensive when it comes to rain, because you'll be like, oh, that's where I normally brake. Now I'm sort of guessing logically, digitally. Where a driver who's quick in loose conditions and non-grippy and low grip conditions, surfaces, they go by feel. Okay, they've got a reference, they know that board is by the braking point, that's fine, but usually they're looking into the corner and they judge that way. So what I'm trying to say is the essence of driving is figuring things out on the go. It's being at the edge of the grip of the tyre. That really is it, all the time. And this brings me to a story of drivers I've had, about drivers that are really good in this department. As soon as the light's green, bang, they're quickest. And I've had drivers that take the first part of the day to get used to it, and then they're just as quick at the end, but they take longer to get into it. And for me, I choose to go for the one who's just out of the box and gone, because it helps in so many different ways. And this one driver I tested, or actually coached for a couple of years, the first time I saw him, or one of the first times, he went out into a Formula Renault with Tech 1 in France on a circuit they always go to, and within 20 minutes he broke their lap record, their personal one. No one's ever driven our car this quick around this circuit. Gobsmacked. I was gobsmacked. They were gobsmacked. Their sponsors I was on the phone to saying, you got to check this kid. He's the bee's knees. And then later on, went through a year of racing, and then we took him to the bigger cars, the World Series, and he did it again. We were at Motorland freezing cold. It was winter testing. Everybody had been going around for 16 laps or so, and it was general belief that it takes time for the tyres to come in because it's so cold. It's like lap 7 before you can get a time out of this. It's crazy because of the long straights and everything. And fine, we just sat there, didn't go out for 16 laps. Then he decided to go out. I think it was the end of the second lap, already did a purple sector. And then the third lap, I might be out here, but I think it was the third lap, purple, P1, parked it, sat there and waited. No one could get near it for ages. Just first time in a World Series, right? And doing that with all these people, great drivers on the grid. But they were on the belief that, oh, there's no grip, and if it did get twitchy, they backed off, and then there just came a whole belief that blanketed the pit lane that there was no grip. Where this dude said, no, I'm just going to go out there, and this is important. I'm going to go out there, and I'm just going to drive to the grip of the tyre. It's all my focus is on. And the reason I know that is because I asked him, how the hell did you do that? I just went out there and drove to the grip of the tyre. Didn't have tyre warmers. Everybody was pointing at us saying, oh, you must have tyre warmers, you must be cheating. It's like, no, this kid just went out there and it didn't waste time weaving, getting into it, using the brakes too much and things. He didn't really think about the warm-up process. It was just as soon as he left the pit lane, freezing cold slicks, he just went. And you could see that he was scrabbling with it all the way through the first lap. But he was on the normal race line, accelerating as hard as the tyre would let him, braking as hard as the tyre would let him, cornering as hard as the tyre would let him. And that was his gauge. And in doing that, he got the jump start. In doing that, he found the grip before anybody else because he wasn't trying to do processes of this is how you do it. Interesting, right? Made it simple. Went out there with a very simple goal and executed. And that, in essence, is what I'm going to tell you, John. When you go out there, just now see the difference, right? When you're in free practice 1, try and think of it now. Free practice 1 or at the beginning of the day, what are you thinking? What questions are you asking yourself? How are you seeing it? How are you feeling? Write all these things out. Process, literally the mental process you go through at the beginning of the day. Once you've done that, what's the mental process you go through once you've warmed up and got into it? What are you thinking about? What are you saying to yourself? What are you focusing on? And you'll see a distinct difference. That distinct difference is a different driver. It leads to a different emotion, which leads to a different decision of how to drive. That in essence is it. And okay, we can go a hell of a lot deeper than that, obviously, because it's more mental, but can't do that when I'm speaking to everybody on a video camera. I have to keep it pretty much for everybody. But really, that's it. If you go there for the start of the session and you're sort of like a bit tense, even in the arms, you're a bit tense and everything, open-eyed, halfway down back of the grid and you're sort of apprehensive about things. And when I say grid, I mean when you're going out to the practice session, you're halfway down and you're just watching and you're trying to get space, your freaking head's all over the place. Then you start to say, oh, I'm off the pace, start to over push, not sure where to. It's just too busy. Compared to the chap who's at the front, all he's got is a clear track. He's going to go for it. He wants to stay ahead, even though it's not a race yet. He just wants to go. And that's in there straight away. I want to go. I'm going to focus and look into the corners really early. I'm going to feel when it gets to that edge of grip of the tyre, because that's where a race driver should live if they're trying to go quick. Just on the edge when it's just starting to go. That's the area of grey that you've got to be so happy to live in, because that's where the lap time is and that's where the speed is. And that's where you drive when you're halfway through the weekend. Fine. But bring it closer to the start of the weekend. That feeling you get, just picture now, right? Before you go out, first of all, get to the front of the grid, front of the queue when you're going for the first practice. Get right to the front or the first few, and that's where you belong. So you're raising your standards. Okay, you might get overtaken again by someone who's still doing it better. That's fine. Watch them. Watch what they're doing and keep up with them. So now we start to get into things. I just forgot what I was going to say before, but we get into things of fear. If it's fear associated, perfect. Because now you can start to attack it and say, what am I fearing? Am I fearing losing control of the car? If so, well, I don't lose the control of the car when I'm halfway through the day and I feel comfortable, so that's rubbish. Is it my car control? You've got to start to get down to the core of it. What's the real reason? And by comparing the start of the session and when you actually started to get on it, comparing that driver, how they're mentally processing it, that's where the key is. Start to learn about yourself. Learn about what your fears are. If it's a fear-related thing, then that's what you've got to either see differently or change the actual belief that you've got. Because when there's no grip out there, it's not really any more dangerous because you're going a bit slower. You can brake a bit earlier, and if it does lock up, you just release the brake, adjust, keep your eyes on the actual apex, if it's a right-hander, for me, and then release and go through a bit quick, and then just screw the corner up. Oh, never mind, just get straight back on it. It's very simple. But if you're going towards something, you're a bit apprehensive, cold, you haven't prepared before or something like that, mentally prepared before you get in the car, visualized, and it's all a bit too much, then there's no wonder you're off. So I'm kind of guessing here with what you're actually battling against, but can you get what I'm trying to say? There's a difference. How you mentally process the start of the day, or when it starts to lose grip, compared to when you're in your element. And at the end of the day, you just got to be really comfortable with playing with the grey area of the grip, because that's where you've got to live. It's being understanding that this is a must. Because if I'm quick, I actually beat people mentally early on. I'm ahead. So it makes me feel better. It makes me look better from the outside, so if anybody wants to sponsor me, they know I'm quick. The team, if you've got a team, but somebody can set the car up for you earlier and find what you're happy with. So it's really important to get that head start. Okay, it's riskier, but to be honest, once you start to play with the grey area of the car and get used to it, and you just coax up to there and know when to say, okay, that's about it, it's no more dangerous than if you're off the limit and you've got quicker cars behind. So it must be done. And remember that when it does change grip halfway through the race, nobody knows where the grip is. It's only the drivers that are happy with saying, okay, I know what it feels like when it's at the edge of the grip. I'm just going to hold it there. Brake a bit earlier, one corner, oh, I lost a bit of time. Okay, I can go a bit deeper. So it's constantly working things out, but forward. How can I use the maximum of this tyre? That's all you should care about. Okay, race lines, but really that's predominantly, if you know you're on the limit, is that feeling. The car will feel different if it's on the limit, and you get hooked to that feeling. Again, transport your mind to later in the weekend when you are on the limit, and that feeling you get, that's what you want to bring closer. And just really at the start of the session, do your mental visualization of what that feels like already. So you brought it into the now, open your eyes, you're near the front, and you're just going to go. You're just going to execute. Less rules, don't need all this tyre warming, it's just go and be on the edge, even pulling out of the actual pit lane, wheel spinning, you're switched on to go forwards. You're looking ahead, looking at the apex really early, so make sure you get in. And then playing with it on the exit, and that'll warm the tyres up quicker anyway, just doing that. Just playing with the car all the time, but being in a hurry to do it. And the more you do that at the beginning of the weekend, the more you'll feel comfortable when the circuit changes no matter what throughout the weekend. It's just a knock-on effect. So first know how important it is. If it's really something you have to change, and you have to make sure you tell the brain that this is not good enough and why. And secondly, understand why you get the decision. Just to be a bit apprehensive at the beginning. Go and model yourself when you're doing it well. Get to the front of the queue, watch other people, keep up with them, and it just comes. This is really important. And it might be a personality thing. It might be the way you go through life. So you've got these filters that do make you go through life in a slightly apprehensive or careful way, even though you're race driving, and people think, oh, that's daring. But still, you got that character of airing on there, being on the air, being cautious. If you're like that, then maybe that's it. Because then that's the type of person who won't go for the slight gap on overtaking. So that's something else you've got to work on. So it's a bit more of a warrior spirit that we might need, but a calculated one. All you got to do is make things very simple. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to get to the edge of the tyre, I'm going to smile each time I do it, I'm going to register this, and away you go. You got it? If you need more, get in touch. I'll see you next time.